If we can please. Yes, I'll call you up, yeah. Yes, I'll call you in a moment, yes. Yeah. Ladies and gents, I hope you had a good night. And one of the things that the ADF wanted me to do is model our shirts. So yesterday I was in black, today I'm in white, you see. So, but I will not walk the steps of the models, please. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. For the sake of time, we're going to start, and the others are going to be joining us as we go along. I thank you very much for coming back, for being with us. And I think today is going to be an exciting day. Today we are going to grasp or look at the meat of ADF. You know, there was a commercial once in the US political elections, and someone was talking about a hamburger. The politicians were talking about a hamburger, and then one of the people said, but there's no meat in the hamburger, it's just bread. So yesterday we had bread, today we're having the meat itself. So to kickstart off the day, we're going to be looking at the future of food deliveries in Africa. Pierre, if you're here, please come up. Please give a hand to Pierre. He's going to tell us about food, which is very important.
Try to focus on the work I will start my presentation from WFP, from our challenges, and then we will try to move to the urban problematics. I will give you a short presentation of WFP aviation. We will talk of the food security challenge in Africa, and with two examples on which I'm working, the Ethiopian operation and South Sudan operation. We will talk of airdrops, perspective offered by big payload drones upcoming, with the short term for WFP, the Flyhawks, and then more food for thought, urban food deliveries. So a few words regarding WFP aviation. Yesterday, so there is a logic, I think, in the agenda of this workshop, where we saw the presentation of colleagues from UNICEF. The mandate of WFP is food assistance and the end of hunger. In the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, we have two key goals under our mandate: end of hunger, SDG 2, and service provision, SDG 17. WFP is the logistic arm of the UN, and we have an aviation department that I compare in size to a company like Alitalia, the fleet, the organization with a training department, etc. So we are responsible of the UNAS, the United Nations Humanitarian Air Service, providing an air service for humanitarian, the transport of humanitarian passengers in 17 countries. We have 271 destinations. We are transporting more than 400,000 passengers every year, performing more than 1,400, these are the figures for 2019, evacuation, and transporting more than 3,400 metric tons of cargo. This is the UNAS business. But WFP Aviation is also responsible of air freight transport through charter flight and ad hoc operation. And under this ad hoc charter, etc., in 2019, we have transported more than 9,000 passengers and 35,000 metric tons of cargo. We are managing 2 planes for UNHCR and 1 plane for UNDSS. So this is the core aviation business for WFP, and this is under our logistic operation. Step by step, the aviation department of WFP is entering in the drone business, and in particular with a focus on cargo drones. We will come back to that. So the food security challenge in Africa. Just to move to the problematics, I will go to the World Food Summit that was organized by FAO in 2019 in August in Copenhagen. And few figures to underline the upcoming challenges. The global population is really growing, and in 2015, we will have to feed 10 billion of people on a manner that advances economic development, but also reduce the impact on climate, water, and ecosystem. The global population is around 7 billion people now, and we will reach 10 billion in 2050. We have to increase the food production of 50% by 2050. And this, if we look the surface that have to be put in culture to feed this population is 600 million hectares. And according to the World Resources Institute, agriculture and related land use generate 25% of the annual greenhouse worldwide. So we have plenty of challenge regarding the increase of the global population and the challenge that we have to feed. To feed this population. Now we move to the case of Ethiopia and South Sudan. Every year in Ethiopia, WFP has the responsibility to feed 8 million people. The population, this is 8% of the population of Ethiopia. The country, second most populated country in Africa, is facing some challenge of drought, floods, climate change, but also inter-ethnic clash. We have a huge population of refugees from Somalia, from South Sudan, and 8% of the population of Ethiopia is dependent of the food aid. In South Sudan, this is half of the population, 5 million. And I put the map of South Sudan because we are facing some big access challenge in South Sudan. 30% of the territory is not accessible during the rainy season. So for us, and in terms of food security, we are facing some huge challenge. Just to give you some figures, and we will move step by step to the drone subject. In Ethiopia, this is 300,000 metric tons of food that are dispatched every year from two main logistic corridors, Djibouti and Berbera. And WFP is contracting every year almost 7,000 trucks to perform our mission. So you imagine the logistic behind this food aid. I talk about the raw challenge and access challenge in South Sudan, but this is the logistic challenge are huge. For her mission in South Sudan, WFP is managing an airdrop, a big airdrop operation from Ethiopia. We are using currently Ilyushin, these Russian planes, cargo planes, for airdrop. In 2019, we have performed 348 rotation flights from Gambela. Gambela is a regional capital in the western part of Ethiopia. We have airdropped 10,500 metric tons of food. We have used in last year 8 million liters of fuel. You imagine the quantity of jet A1 that we are using for this operation. In 2018, the fuel budget for this operation was $44 million US dollar. It was the first post of expenditure of the country office WFP in Ethiopia. It's huge. And in terms of operation, we are looking at the cost of 1 ton of cereal delivered on the ground. When we talk of airdrop operation for South Sudan, so Ilyushin are flying every day. They are doing 1 or 2 rotations from Gambela to we have 140 airdrop locations in 3 main provinces of South Sudan. The cost of the ton of cereal delivered on this way is 1,500 US dollar per metric ton. So let's look at this figure because in terms of food deliveries, this is the indicator that we are using to measure the efficiency and the cost of the operation. I just show you a very short very short movie, 1 minute, about this operation. It's in French, sorry. So from the extreme west of Ethiopia, 28 tons of cereal are loaded in an Ilyushin. And transported What is amazing on this operation is the coordination between the crew members, navigator, pilot, and the cargo compartment. And for each drop, we are doing a dry pass and then 3 drop. We are dropping 10 metric tons per pass. And between each drop, we have to recondition and reposition the pallet in the plane. So these are the current operation and challenge that we are facing for a humanitarian operation. Let's move to the drones and the perspective. WFP started this drone business in 2017, and our ongoing drone operations are mainly focused on, for the time being, light drones for emergency preparedness, emergency response, disaster risk management, climate adaptation and response, capacity building, and very small cargo deliveries. So you have a map of WFP US footprint, but our philosophy was, if we start with light drones, we are preparing the field and working with the actors in the countries where we are working to prepare the field for bigger drones. So we have started with this capacity building exercise. Yesterday, Antonio Beleze gave a very good example of what we did in Mozambique this year in response to the cyclone Kenneth and Idai, and the work that we have done in partnership with them. Now let's look at the short future. Our team, and I am here with 6 colleagues from the 3 departments that I mentioned, and my colleague Oleg in Rome is looking at doing a kind of intelligence, technological intelligence work to see what is coming on the market and what will be available soon that could serve our operation. Alors, we are looking at different kind of drones, but I want to give some examples. We have the Nautilus. The Nautilus is a 34, a drone with a capacity, a cargo capacity of 4 tons that is developed in California, that will be probably available. The first test flight will be done in 2020, and we hope, according to the manufacturer, a certification in 2022. The company is based in Richmond, California, and this kind of drone could help us to divide, and this is what we are looking at. The cost, I show you this 1,500 US dollar per metric ton delivered, to divide the cost of delivery by 50%. This is the objective. We have also the sub-wing Regal, same type of drone, but VTOL, with a VTOL capacity under development. The company is also based in California, and in Alaska, the community of Simple Island have already contracted 4 of them. They will be the launching, not company, but a customer to supply their island. So we are also on a development phase and certification expected for 2022-2023. They are in discussion with FA, but this is typically the type of drone that could serve food deliveries operation in Africa. WFP is working in some areas where we have some security issues like South Sudan, and the last mile delivery is something extremely important for us, where we can reduce the exposure of our staff to security concerns. And we are looking at two Chinese products, the Fedong 98, it's a frame of Antonov 2. This drone is already flying. The payload capacity are really smaller, but for last mile delivery, this could be a tool that makes sense for operation. And another product that is based on the frame of Pact 750. This one, the 8200 for the last mile delivery, is something that could be also of interest for us. Currently, I put here the time frame for the development and certification expected for this type of drones. On a WFP perspective, what we are expecting is to be able to divide the cost of the ton delivered by 50%. WFP is also working with singular aircraft and looking at very closely working with singular aircraft for the development of the Flyhawks. Sajiv from Astral in Nairobi will talk about that, but this is an amphibious drone that can do also some airdrop, and currently the company is doing some tests in Saint-Domingue, and we are hoping an experimental certification quite soon, and we would like to be part of the test of this tool for our last mile delivery operation. And we are looking and working with them on the test and expecting a very quick certification. This was the humanitarian business and what we are looking at in terms of food deliveries. Now I would like to, before the end of my presentation, talk about kind of food for thought and urban UAVs food deliveries. Because for me, there is a big market and challenge on that in Africa upcoming. Leslie mentioned it yesterday, the mobility in the context of the fourth industrial revolution in Africa. Also the IT minister of Rwanda talked about it. The urbanization in Africa is really going extremely fast. 36% of the African population was urban population in 2010, and we are expecting for 2030, 50% of the population to be an urban population. There is a rapid growth of the population without improvement of the infrastructure. Many African towns are suffering of challenges in terms of roads, water supply, etc. The number of, we have two big megapoles in Africa, Lagos and Cairo, and 41 big cities, more than 2 million inhabitants. Currently, some tests are ongoing, in particular in the US, for urban drone deliveries. I mentioned three tests ongoing. In April 2019, FAA has granted some temporary experimental authorization for Google in Virginia. In May 2019, Amazon Prime, and in June in San Diego, Uber Eats has started some tests. I want to refer to a Forbes study, recent studies, the Forbes magazine, that was talking about these urban deliveries. And for me, there is a big perspective and challenge for Africa. According to the Wall Street Journal, currently we have 364 venture capital. The business for these drone deliveries, it's 4 billion invested in through venture capital in US companies and applications. According to the Forbes studies, when you use drones for food delivery in urban environment, you reduce the time of delivery. The average time of delivery is 5 to 10 minutes compared to 10 to 30 minutes by motorbike or normal vehicle. So you can do 15 deliveries in 1 hour versus 3 with the traditional road transport. And you decrease, by using drones, the cost of the transportation of the food or whatever from 15 to 30% to 5 to 10%. In the context of the urban growth in Africa, food, medical, whatever, I see a big perspective like the mobile revolution. We move from nothing to everybody with mobile phone. Yesterday, the introduction of the regional director from World Bank was extremely inspiring when he was talking about the economic perspective of this market. But the test that we are looking very closely at the current test in the US, because for me, the application in a big urban town in Africa, I live in Addis Ababa, and the perspectives are extremely interesting, just as food for thought. In conclusion, what are the bottleneck and current constraints for us? First of all, regulatory. We are, for example, in Ethiopia, we have launched a drone project. It's on case-by-case authorization. And we are really, I'm looking at our ICAO colleagues present here, looking forward a global regulation in terms of training, etc. The cross-border. My presentation, my example from South Sudan, we are on cross-border operation between Ethiopia and South Sudan. As soon as we'll be ready to start cross-border operation, it will make a huge difference for us. It will be discussed during this forum, but organization of the UTM, the safety, the question of certification and maintenance. I was mentioning the FlyOx. We are hoping an experimental certification for the time being to start our operation. But what type of certification for cargo drones? The training and the operator. And I will conclude on that. It's the first forum organized on this subject. And we are in front of a new industry that is growing and will come. On a WFP perspective, the way how we work in aviation, we are working with operators that are audited, certified by our aviation safety department, and they respond to our tender. Sometimes we need big cargo aircraft, sometimes we need only a Cessna Caravan for a particular operation, and they respond to our demand. We need to create an ecosystem of drone operators that are certified and that are able to respond to our demand for our operation. So for us, for WFP perspective, the creation of this ecosystem of drone operator certified with a certain standard. In aviation, we are using the UN AFSTAT, aviation standard. We need the same in the drone business. And we are starting, I will say, from zero, but to encourage and empower this new startup, these people, this challenge, to create strong operators is really a priority for WFP. Thank you very much for your attention. So we move from the humanitarian to the urban, but this is the way how we see the future of food deliveries in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pierre. Now we get to know why people say that the WFP has got the largest logistical framework, cargo, and the largest number of planes in the world. Can I have that, please? And so as usual, we at the ADF have to do this. I don't know what is inside, but thank you very much, for your talk. So from food, still linked to food, we go to the earth. WFP delivers, but where does the food come from? So let me and your moderator is going to be Diana. precautions, and she's a host of the program called The Square. Welcome. You're not supposed to hear that, but that's okay. So, over to you, Diana, and let's see what we have in agriculture.
Thank you very much, George, and good morning, everybody. Good morning. I think we'll need a lot more energy in the room today. I know it's the second day, and use will change this. So I'd like to call my panel forward, and this particular panel, as you can see, and as George says, we're going to talk about the earth, and we're going to look at agriculture and drone technology in agriculture, and if this is a game changer, especially across the continent. And that said, I'd like to call the four speakers for this panel. Eric Acquah, CEO of Aquamaya Drone Tech, welcome to the stage. I'd also like to call Hamza Benadohu, CEO of Sowit SAS, Eric Rutaisire, CEO of Caris, UAS, and Giacomo Rambaldi, Senior Program Coordinator, ICTs at CTA. Let's give them a warm welcome. Just very quickly, I know you have their bios, but I think respectfully I'd like to introduce them briefly. As you can see from the program, we have Eric Acquah, who is the CEO of Aquamaya Drone Tech. And he's passionate about innovation. In 2017, Eric founded this company and in Ghana, where the company assembles spraying drones and deploys them to serve agribusiness and protection and fertilization. He started using drones, robotic arms, and artificial intelligence. Maintenance and repair. Thank you for the panel.
Thank you.
I'll introduce Hamza, is the co-founder of which is a startup build decision support tools based on remote sensing that helps the African farmers optimize their most critical operations. Hamza designs and builds long-range autonomous drones that carry multiple sensors tailored to the agricultural sector. His interest in Africa and agriculture led him to use his skills to build algorithms that help farmers reduce their inputs and maximize their yields. Great to see you on this.
Thank you, Diana. Hi, everybody.
I'd also like to introduce Eric Rutaisire, who is the founder of I pronounced it correctly, Eric?
Yes.
Caris. He has vast experience in research and development and business development. In 2014, he founded this company, Caris UAS, the first drone company in Rwanda, whose mission is to provide aerial imagery for intelligent decision-making, inspection, health, and construction. Now, the company has expanded and operates in 5 countries across Africa. Eric, great to have you on the panel.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Giacomo Rambaldi, who is the program coordinator for ICTs at the Technical Center for Agriculture and Rural Cooperation based in the Netherlands. Mr. Giacomo has 37 years of professional experience in Africa, Latin America, Asia, the Pacific, and the Caribbean, where he has worked for various international organizations. He is a member of the ICT for Agriculture team at the CTA and is coordinating a stream of activities related to the deployment of drone technology in agriculture, including influencing drone governance policy making. Thank you, Mr. Rambaldi, for joining the panel.
Thank you.
And without further ado, I would like to ask my panelists to give a brief introduction. So just listen to their work, and we're going to go into specific questions, and we will have a Q&A with you to cap this panel. And I would like to start with you, Eric, and if you could just briefly tell us introductively what Aquamaya's role has been in innovating agricultural production.
Thank you, Diana. I'd like to say a very big thank you to EF P20 organizers, to Rwanda, to the World Bank, and to CTA for supporting us and giving us the opportunity to be on the panel today. Akwamaya Drone Tech develops unmanned aerial vehicles and uses them to apply pesticides and fertilizers to field crops and tree crops in Ghana and its neighboring country. Compared to the piloted aircraft, the unmanned aerial vehicle can focus on small crop fields at lower flight altitudes and perform site-specific farm management services. With precision, with high precision and efficiency than the piloted aircraft. Compared to the backpack sprayer, the UAV or the drone is faster and it's more precise in the application of the product. And currently we have treated 180,000 hectares of farmland in Africa. In 2018, I'm very proud to say that we helped farmers in Ghana to control the fall armyworm epidemic. And we are also one of the few drone operation companies that is working with pesticide manufacturers to calibrate the pesticides for use for drones in Africa.
Thank you very much, Eric. I'd also like you, Hamza, to introduce SOWIT's role in agriculture since its inception.
Thank you. First, thank you to the ADF and CTA for having us on this panel. It's great to have this kind of forum in Africa, and I hope it will be the first of a long line. So, SOWIT is really born from a frustration. It's the frustration of seeing the African agriculture lag behind the Western agriculture in so much ways. For example, the wheat yields are around 3 tons per hectare. Africa, Western countries, 6 per hectare, meaning that there are guys that have 10 tons per hectare yields. We have 60% of arable land in Africa, so there is great potential that needs to be optimized. And what Pierre just said in his keynote really talks to me. So 10 billion people to feed by 2050, Africa will be, without a doubt, part of the solution. So, for us, in order to fill this productivity gap, at SOWIT we are tackling the information problem. We think that the African farmer lacks some information, and in order to bring that to him, we're developing decision support tools. So, those are tools that are based on satellite imagery, drone imagery, or even ground-based data, in order to build algorithms and models that will help the farmer optimize his operation during his season, going from irrigation or fertilization through the harvest date estimation or yield estimation. So we're trying to provide the farmer with models that have a 5% margin of error in order to allow him to really act on his farm and see the heterogeneity of his plot to optimize his inputs.
Thank you very much. And Eric, if you'd also tell us about the impact and the journey of CARIS in agriculture using US technology.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity. At CARIS, our first vision was really to look at the challenges that the continent was facing and really customize drones and build them to solve those issues. So we understand the customer requirement, the needs of the specific application, and you try to build a system to help them do that. So in terms of agriculture, in Rwanda, we've worked with farmers in North where we together with help increase their yield. So, and also we've done a lot of cost-benefit analysis around really understanding the use of drone in serving the farmers, because there is a lot of hype, but as well we need to understand the cost-benefit analysis of really is it cost-benefit to them. So we've done that a lot, and we've started seeing really that impact, that the impact is there, that we have promising results that are showing that actually they can, smallholder farmer, because in Africa we are more dealing with a smallholder farmer compared to large-scale farming. So trying to bring that solution to customize it to the need of our continent is a key in our journey really at CARIS. So so far we have started also expanding this technology and knowledge to other countries of Africa, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Gabon, and in Tanzania we've done some work, in Uganda we've done some work. Impact of that technology to the smallholder farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. Last introductory question to you. That's what technology.
Thank you very much. It is an international organization in 79 countries, Sub-Saharan Africa, Caribbean, Pacific. I've been managing a project focusing on drone introduction in Africa starting in 2016. And we launched a series of calls in 2017 for entrepreneurs to apply to benefit from project support. We invested in these selected companies. 11% of the total project budget was given out in terms of seed money for the acquisition of hardware and software. It was co-funding, so CTA co-funded 60% of the expense, and the rest of the budget went into capacity building, training on piloting drones, obviously exposure to regulations and good practice, data processing, data interpretation, business development, enterprise management, communication and social media. So fundamentally, we assisted and we nurtured these enterprises in growing and becoming effective on the market. There were questions on the cost and benefit, and we launched 4 research projects in partnership with some of our partners and research institutions or universities. We offered our partners networking opportunities, attendance in conferences, participation as speakers or as expositors at international events. We invested a lot in making sure that our partners would establish a reputation, their reputation online, which counts the most, and build their identity. So we never tried to impose CTA as the leading agency. They were in the forefront, because for us, these entities, these companies have to go on and be self-sustaining once CTA is going to disappear from the scene. Okay? We have published success stories based on their experiences. We provided them alerts. We created a small community on WhatsApp, which is extremely dynamic, where the various members of the more than 40 enterprises now exchange and help each other. We gave them access to another digital community with more than 1,500 members, all dealing with drones for agriculture in developing countries. And we assisted them, and the idea came from them, to establish an international, an industry association of digital operators called Africa Goes Digital, which was incorporated and which will ensure continuity for the growth of these enterprises without external support from CTA. What is more important is that in 2016 we did a study on the bottlenecks and regulations. Disabling regulations or the absence of regulations was one of the key factors, and we sort of facilitated the development of a study which led in January 2018 to the Executive Council of the African Union to recommend the use of drone technology in agriculture across African states. And that then followed with the publication of a document by the African Union detailing the motivations. Yeah, this is in a nutshell what CTA has been doing so far.
Thank you very much. And I would like to just do a deep dive to the panel in terms of your work. And Eric, if you can just start by telling us, if we can backtrack a bit, what inspired you to start Akwamaya, and what have been some of your challenges thus far?
Okay, so in 2017, I walked into a shop in Germany, and then I realized that food crops coming from Ghana were banned from entering Germany. This is because the farmers were applying the plant protection in the wrong way, and so it left traces of residues in the food crops. So I researched into how I could help the farmers in Ghana to overcome this challenge. And with the background of aviation, I realized that the drone technology could help the farmers to apply the product in a way that will only not prevent the food from being burnt, but also that is a bit cheaper than the way they are currently applying the product, and it's also a bit safer and prevent diseases. So this is why I started Akwamaya in 2017 to help the farmers. The challenges that we have had so far is that from 2017 to now we've been bootstrapping, and we have been trying to raise funds to expand or to scale up our operations, but it has been very difficult, as startups in Ghana. So this is the major challenge that we are facing currently.
Thank you very much. And for you, Hamza, your strength is in the specialization business, but why have you chosen to specialize at Solid as opposed to diversifying, especially with the work that you do within the agricultural sector?
Yes, so we have decided to choose the agricultural vertical. We're not a drone service provider or a drone company, actually we're more of a data company. So we're trying to really get as much data as we can. It can be from drones. Drones are still central to our operation, because when we develop a model, we need to adapt that model to the agroclimatic conditions of Africa, and drones provide us with good resolution. So this is where the drone is in our operation. But in order to scale our solution and to give models that are really give real value to the farmer, we need to develop a real expertise in this field. And we develop this expertise by partnering with agronomical research center, remote sensing research centers that help us go a step further in our models. And our core business then is take this data and their models in order to provide the farmer with the inputs he needs to see the heterogeneity of his plot and the problems he has on his plots. What is important to see is that there is a difference between providing him with qualitative information and tackling a specific problem for a specific crop. So providing the farmer with the qualitative information is something that has been done for quite a while. For example, as soon as the satellites with high resolutions have been developed, let's say, vegetation indexes were developed for a long time that gave a good index on how the crop is doing. But the real way you're going to help the farmer optimize and really tackle the problems he has on his crop is by giving him quantitative information. In order to give him this quantitative information, you need to have some strong models that are really calibrated to the fields and to the crops you are working in. So that's why we have chosen to specialize in agriculture in order to develop this competency. But we are also diversifying in our vertical. We are tackling different types of crops, field crops, tree crops. We're also tackling different kinds of problematics. Our goal is to help the farmer throughout his season, going from sowing date, the best sowing date possible, through estimating his yields.
Thank you very much. Eric, my next question is for you. You, on the other hand, your business model is very diversified. But if you can just start by telling us what are the type of agricultural activities and sectors that your company sees most potential to work with, and if you can give some examples of some of the most promising applications that you use.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you mentioned, we have diversified our services across many industries, from power line inspection, mining, surveys, and different level of mapping. What we have seen is that there is a level of transferable skills that we have brought from those industries even to the agriculture sector. For example, in the agriculture domain, we are not only doing the crop monitoring, which is really basically what drones are being used for in typical agriculture application, but we have seen where we're starting to use GIS, for example, to do farmers profiling, understanding the boundaries of their crops, understanding how much the expectation of their yield in terms of like the trees that they are planting. We're using GIS for tree counting, in those plots. So we have seen that there is many within the agriculture sector itself. The use of drone can be used for in many ways. So as my colleagues mentioned as well, the spraying abilities that are there. After doing the crop monitoring, you can do spraying. So all of that we have been able to also participate, and some of those skills are coming from the other industries. So, and one of the most really promising application we've been involved in the agriculture sector is beyond obviously the crop monitoring, is the profiling of farmers. Now in Cote d'Ivoire, we're about to start a huge project there where we are helping a big farm that is planting palm trees excuse me, in helping them really understand and manage the size of their field. They have a very huge field there, but it was hard for them to manage, even the farmers, how much the input they are receiving, how much they are putting in there. Some of them will not actually put the input they are receiving, they will sell it on the other side. So we have seen a really great potential, because it's one of the biggest challenges that we have here in Africa. We may have all the inputs we have, we can get, but if we are not applying them, if we are not being efficient in a way we are doing it, it becomes hard. So we've been able to add that level of intelligence in the daily-to-daily operation of those farmers. So we are hoping to continue that across also the continent.
Thank you very much, Eric. Giacomo, my question is for you with regards to the work that your organization does. For the last 4 years, and we saw it briefly on your slide, you've been managing the implementation of the project called Eyes in the Sky Smart Techs on the ground. If you could just give us an idea, a bit more of what this project does, some of the challenges you've faced, and what CT has done to address these challenges.
Well, in my initial presentation, I listed the various activities we have been doing. Indeed, there were challenges. Challenges we faced as a developing agency supporting the entrepreneurs, and challenges entrepreneurs face themselves. The common challenge everybody has been facing was to deal with regulations, okay? Knowing the regulations. Also in the absence of regulations, that was a challenge. For our operator in Uganda, one of the first ones to own a drone in Uganda, the drone was hauled up for 7 months at the airport to get it out. And of course, as a donor agency, as a development agency, that was a problem to get the project rolling, and they were the first one. Later on, things became easier, but when you are the front runner, I mean, all our partners were the first operators in the specific countries. And also, lack of experience, they were lacking understanding of the potential and pitfalls of the technology. One thing we noted was the absence of agronomic skills within the companies. All these companies were usually companies having a geodetic background, ICTs and so on, and they were techie guys, but they lacked the agronomic skills. This is something which we increasingly value when you as a company deal with the advisory services in the domain of agriculture. Then there were ecosystem challenges, because when you gather data with drones, you gather a huge amount of data. Okay? And if you want to do cloud processing, I mean, the connectivity you have in most of the countries doesn't allow you to do that. And so that was a learning process. And of course, all these challenges were addressed one way or the other. And for example, the challenge of poor connectivity was addressed in accessing locally based softwares which allow to process the data locally. But there was a steep learning curve to learn how to use this data processing software, and so we hired a German company to accompany our partners to coach them in the use of this software. It's a non-call service, so if they have problems, they just call and get coached on how to address the problem. Another thing is that they were asked by clients, can you do this? And they didn't know how much to charge because they didn't develop a price structure for their services. And this is still something which is growing, because by trial and errors you find out how much you have to charge. And this is part of the assets you have as an enterprise when you know the price you can charge. When you are the only provider, then, I mean, it's not so difficult. When there are other enterprises competing on the market, you must know exactly how much it costs to you. There is general lack of evidence of cost effectiveness of drone-based advisory services for small-scale farmers. I mean, the big industrial estates, they invest in drone technology, they know the cost, they know the returns. But when it comes to small-scale farmers, it's a challenge. And for that, CTA funded 4 research projects, one in Rwanda, one in Benin, one in Burkina, and one in Ghana. The data are now trickling in, and we have preliminary results which indicate that there is an increase in productivity and an increase of net income when following drone-based advice. These were the first research project. I'm sure that in implementing these research projects, our partners have learned. We involved universities, we involved research institutions in doing that, but I advocate and I recommend this kind of research project to be repeated until there is a robust evidence of cost and benefit for the technology. Then the companies had lack of capital to buy, invest in new drones and so on, but this is part of the business. And I must say that when I learned that Charis was offering services in all these different sectors, diversified, then they told me, yes, we have X drones. I don't know how many, 20 drones with 20 different sensors, because you need a drone and a sensor for a specific purpose. And then probably you need a backup drone, because if the first one breaks down, you have to have a second one. So these were the main challenges. We try to address them either from an institutional perspective, influencing policy. We have been quite vocal on social media, on regulations. I've had the opportunity also to participate in ICAO meetings. We assisted the African Union coming up with the recommendation on deployment of drones for agriculture. And then again, I think that the key of success of these enterprises is that now, after 3 years of partnership, they can run alone. They don't need me, they don't need CTA. They are self-sustaining, we can walk away and they go. And they are all under an umbrella, Africa Goes Digital, which is an African-run industry association. The directors are all Africans, and they are now fundraising to offer the members the opportunity to build capacity, to build further capacities. They will help them in networking and so on. So these are the challenges, and these are the ways we try to overcome the challenges.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask you a few general questions to the entire panel. You've all talked about how your organizations are making inroads in really accelerating drone technology across the continent, specifically in agriculture. But we all know that most of the farmers in agriculture are smallholder or subsistence farmers. What do you say to people who say that, or who ask you the question, is this technology realistic at this point in time for most of the farmers that you are trying, whose farming livelihoods you're trying to improve through using this tech. What do you have to say to that? Eric, do you want to start?
I'd like to go first. Yeah. So, I mean, in recent times, there've been a lot of, or there've been different types of drone technologies that has been customized for agriculture. But we at Akwamaya, we focused on spraying because this is something that farmers, whether small, big, or commercial, this is something that they can do away with. No farmer can cultivate their crops without applying pesticides or fertilizers. So it is something that every farmer calculates, when they are preparing for their season or whatever. So we focused on that because it's something that is the farmer definitely needs. And what we are doing at Akwamaya is that we are trying to help the farmer to get that service cheaper. So our drones, our drone is able to spray a hectare of land in 15 minutes, which is way faster than what the farmer can do using the backpack sprayer or the boom sprayer. And also, the technology saves the farmer 50%, of the cost of the pesticides or fertilizer that they need. So our service, in a way, reduces, the cost that the farmer needs to bear in crop production. And so there have been a challenge, comparing the smallholder farmer to the commercial farmers and the ability for them to be able to pay for the service. But it is something that they already know and they already prepare for, so it's taken care of in a way.
Yes, so the question of the smallholder farmer adoption of these technologies is central, and it is, to be honest, not an easy question, because the first thing we have to do is allow these farmers to adopt these technologies. Because, when you talk to farmers, they will say to you, usually, if you can do something very simply, I don't need your machine learning algorithm to, if I can get, a little margin difference or a little margin, I don't need your complex algorithm. And so you really have to show to him that he will win something using your technology. One of the ways we've talked about in order to make this adoption by the smallholder farmer is to go through how it works in Africa. For example, when you are in a big agricultural region and you have a big agribusiness there, we've noticed that usually that big agribusiness is somewhat in order to maintain some kind of social peace around her, because she has around her many smallholder farmers that sometimes even go to work for her, for harvest dates or when they need workforce to do fertilization. We've noticed that this agribusiness acts as a free consultant for those farmers. So usually they tell us that the farmers will call them and ask them, hey, how much fertilizer have you put? Have you noticed some kind of spreading disease? What will you do in order to eradicate it? What can you advise? They even sometimes provide them with the things they need. So we thought that one of the first things we need to do is use this first tunnel in order to make the adoption of the technology. So when the referent guy in the region uses a technology, automatically all the other guys are getting interested. And one of the solutions, obviously, for the smallholder farmers, that has 1-2 hectares, is to create clusters of these farmers. So this is something that they think about very naturally, creating clusters in order to provide them with one quick advice. So here comes also the rationale about the satellite use. So the drone is complementary to the satellite. It is a very important tool because it allows us very good resolutions, and it's necessary for us when we need to calibrate our models to the agroclimatic conditions of the region. But for scalability, the satellite is necessary for us because it will allow us to do 20,000 hectares at a time. So when we're talking about smallholder farmer, we can also see that the price of the service can be decreased using satellite because there are many satellite constellations, so ones that are free, for example the Sentinel constellation from the European Space Agency, which allows 10-meter resolution, which is big but enough for field crops, not tree crops but field crops, that is enough, and we can go higher in resolution and obviously higher in price. So those are the two things we see in order to get the solution to the smallholder. The third one is obviously to institutions. So that's one of the projects we've done in Ethiopia, where we've worked with the ATA, Agency for Agricultural Transformation. We've worked with them on a yield estimation project in order to help them evaluate the yield of the clusters of smallholder farmers they are creating, and to which they are providing many informations to help them improve their yields and improve their margins. And this yield estimation algorithm is a way for the Ethiopian government and ATA to follow the performance of these clusters.
Thank you very much, Hamza. Eric and Giacomo, the same question applies to you regarding smallholder farmers across the continent and the realistic aspect of using drone technology.
Sure. So as my colleague said, what I could add as well is the side of the cost-benefit analysis that needs to be really done and has been actually done. As Giacomo said, we worked on a project together that preliminary results are showing that actually there is an impact, there is an increase in yield and as well the net income, as he said. So using those evidence-based data, and you go to a farmer, a smallholder farmer, and you show them that actually this is working, then it really make them adopt that technology. In Rwanda, for example, in Musanze, where we are doing a lot of work for farmers, you could see that there is, in the beginning, there was a bit of skepticism, but now they are really embracing it. They are really happy about it. Not only those that we have, but actually other farmers who are even near them would come and just try to get the knowledge we've given those that we are helping and use them in their field. So you could see that it's spreading, it's becoming, I would say, contagious. And so there is actually that kind of hope that we're seeing, but it should be really based on the evidence of hard data to convince someone, because it's easy to have to be hyped by the technology, to be excited by the technology, but at the end of the day, if we don't see the benefit, if it's not backed by real evidence, then there is no, it becomes harder to adopt. So for us, another thing as well is this is type of high tech, you know, in the context of our farmers as well. So we need to be able to translate those terms and have approach that really goes down to their level, even integrated in their daily work, so that they understand it. Before, they used to think a drone is something, I don't know, yeah, they call it different names, but now it's becoming really a part of their daily lives and their farming habits. So I believe it's a progressive approach. It's going to take time, but with the data behind it that really shows the impact, we're seeing that level of adoption of the technology with farmers. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that one has to be honest and be knowledgeable that the technology is not for a subsistence small-scale farmer. The technology is for small-scale farmers who think commercial and who grow the same crop in contiguous areas. So you have crops which are ideal for that. Tea, for example, is grown by small-scale farmer on large areas. Paddy rice, same. So wheat, and there are interventions by government, like in Rwanda, the crop intensification program, like in Kenya, the cluster program, in Ethiopia, the cluster program, where government is incentivizing farmers to plant at the same time, the same crop with the same variety. Why? The idea is to facilitate mechanization, but mechanization goes hand in hand with the deployment of drone technology, because A drone operator won't drive 50 kilometers to fly half a hectare. It's not economically viable. A drone operator will drive 50 kilometers to fly 100 hectares. And there you have to have 100 farmers, assuming they have 1 hectare each. And so the clients of the drone operators are automatically agribusinesses, large cooperatives, okay, or areas which are benefiting from support from donor agencies. But the ultimate conclusion of what we have been learning in these 3 years of project implementation is that you have to look for farmers, for cropping systems which are ideal for the deployment of the technology. And 2 weeks ago, I received an email from Charles saying the farmers are asking for drone-based advice for the next season. And I was super happy because that's a demand coming from the farmers. But this is a cooperative of farmers. It's not the farmer. The medium-scale, large-scale farmer, he or she will ask for the service. The small-scale farmers, provided they are in a group, then they can ask and pay for. They won't pay for that because farmers try not to be willing to pay, okay? But if it is a cooperative, if it is an agribusiness, they usually provide advanced crop inputs. And the farmer is meant to pay that back at the end of the season in the form, either in cash or in the form of product. That the second option is the best one. And so the drone-based advisory service can be embedded into that cost. So people won't feel it. It is part of the overall cost. It's part of the agronomic advice provided by the agribusiness and by the cooperative. So these are the lessons we learned in the process, and there are signs that it is taking up. And yeah, I think we should build on these kind of lessons.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just open this session. We just have a couple of minutes left to the audience. Members, if you have any questions or additional comments to those that this panel has given. If you just raise your hand, and we have a roaming microphone that can be availed to you. Questions or comments from the audience? Yes, there's a gentleman at the corner.
Hello, my name is Paul Georgie. I'm the founder of GeoGeo, which is an international development and GIS consultancy based in Scotland. We predominantly work with rural development, both home and across the continent. I have to admit that coming into this meeting, I was very hopeful that we would hear more about the use of drones for empowering smallholder farmers, and I'm glad that it did get a mention as well. But I just wanted to ask the panel, in terms of a timeline where we see an area where smallholder farmers can actually adopt these technologies for themselves, and particularly the role of the young workforce, which we see both here and back home as well, where we're trying to encourage people not to move into the cities for work, but actually showing them that modern technology can be applicable to modern farming. And I guess smallholder farmers should be the primary focus because of the overarching emphasis that commercial farming shouldn't really, and monoculture shouldn't really have a future if you're considering things with a changing climate.
A couple of more questions. Yes, there's a gentleman right here at the front.
Thank you very much. My name is Seda from IATA, International Air Transport Association. Just two questions. If Eric or Hamza can comment. You talked about paddy rice, and you talked about using drones, but back home we've got an experience with birds. You know, when you're just about to harvest, birds just rain havoc on the harvest. And is there anybody working on this? And the second question is more related to aviation, since we're in aviation, on wildlife control at the airports. I've seen situations where, you know, birds are a threat to flight, you know that, and the kind of impact it has is just tremendous. So I've seen situations where we want to chase out the birds, they just fly a little bit and then they come back. You fly a little bit and they come back. And to avoid this kind of thing, have you applied the technology in wildlife control? Perhaps if you can comment on those two. Thank you very much.
To the panelists, the two questions? Three questions, actually. Yes, everyone.
Yeah. Okay. The first question, no, let me first answer the second question. Okay, so yeah, we at Aquamaya Drone Tech, we have developed a drone that scares birds, like he said, especially on rice farms. It's still in development. We have tried the solution a couple of times, and we are trying to understand the birds. It's very true that you can scare the birds, they go away, but they come back again. So last year, we were able to develop a technology, a couple of sounds that works on the brains of the birds, that when they hear that specific sound in the particular area for a couple of times, you can't do it once. You need to fly the drones and make the sounds for about a week or two. And when these birds hear the sounds in this particular area for this period of time, they automatically, know that this place has the sounds, and they go and they never come back. So we tried, first of all, so when you have like about 1,000 birds coming to the farm, it will reduce in a week. After you finish the whole process in a week, the 1,000 beds will reduce to about 200 beds. The only problem is that those particular beds that the sound has worked on will not come back, but new beds, will have to come back. So it should be a continuous process. So the solution is there. We've tried it. It's working. The challenge right now is how to price it to the farmers, or what we are going to do next. So yeah, we are piloting it still in Ghana, and we are hoping to get a very good result that we can send outside. With the issue of the airports also, a company that I'm working with in Germany has developed a solution that also scares birds specifically for airports. And yeah, so there are solutions for this kind of things.
Yes,
regarding the first question, there's something that Giacomo said that is very true, is that for the smallholder farmer to date, it is complicated for him to get this service, but even, we've been to agricultural forums, and we've tried to present the solution to smallholder farmers, and the problematic is that they automatically think this is a service that is not for them. It is not for them because they are smallholder, they have 1 hectare, they have 1 or 2 hectares. It is not for them because they think it is pricey. It is not for them because they think the technology required is too complicated. I think that it can be done through the different ways I've talked, about in my previous speech, but what is important to see is that the solution is really accessible for smallholder farmers. Just to give you an idea about the prices, for example, when we're talking about wheat fields and cereals, our solution is around 10 euros per hectare, approximately. And from the tests we've done regarding the value added, if we combine fertilization and irrigation, the farmers win around 80 euros per hectare. So it is really accessible, and they can really get a good value added from it. The solution to that, I think, in order to give this solution to the smallholder, is the clusterization, like what's been done in Ethiopia. And this is more of a government and institution push, and then we will be able to provide the solution at a larger scale to these farmers.
Yeah, I really get that you're saying there's strength in numbers in terms of cooperatives and agribusinesses. Giacomo, Eric, would you like to respond?
Yeah. The first provocative question about empowerment. I've been working on participatory development for many years. And the technology now, I mean, you can't imagine a farmer having half a hectare, buying a drone and making the crop diagnostic. It's impossible now. Same with phones. I mean, maybe in 10 years' time there will be drones and algorithms, everything embedded into a chip, and they can do that. But nowadays, no. So they have to rely on technology intermediaries. You mentioned the issue of youth. These companies have grown in 4 or 5 years, in 4 or less years. Now you have 16 employees? 25, sorry. All in the youth category. Soviet, how many you have? 30. They were incorporated in November 2018, have 13 employees. Are they all within the youth bracket?
Sorry?
Are they all below 35 years old?
Yeah.
Okay. And Eric, what about your team in Ghana?
22.
22?
Yeah.
Age break?
Between 22 and 30 years.
So, the answer is, since the youth likes technology, the rural youth as well, okay? I remember here in Kigali in 2013, we organized the ICT for Ag conference. And Honorable Kalibata, in her closing speech, she said, ICTs makes agriculture sexy. And she was right. The kids, if they are given the opportunity to embed in the agricultural operation technology, they are happy to run the agricultural operations and stay in the rural areas. And we have seen that all across. I've been monitoring the growth of these enterprises in terms of employment. Those who are generating revenues and so on are growing very fast, and generally employment is done within the youth bracket. 30%, 35% are women. Contracts are no longer short-term contracts, project-based contracts, but medium-term, long-term contracts. So this means that this technology helps youth getting a job, getting an exciting job, because frankly speaking, it is exciting, okay, innovative, unique, distinguishing them from others. And it is really attractive. So when it comes to employment, it is a winning technology. When it comes to monoculture, you mentioned monoculture, in Ethiopia they support the development of clusters in the range of 50 hectares, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So which doesn't mean that you have 10,000 hectares of wheat, because one cluster can grow wheat, the other cluster can grow teff, the other cluster can grow another crop. And I think that government is fully aware that monocropping is not beneficial for biodiversity and for many other things. So I think that we should be aware of the history, we should be aware of the damage which certain practices like monoculture can cause to our environment, to biodiversity and to sustainability. And this is a government issue, government policy issue, that they try to make sure that these drawbacks of crop intensification are not harming the environment and the livelihood of the people.
Thank you very much. Eric, is there something you wanted to say?
Yeah, just a quick one. For the first question in terms of the adoption of technology, on top of what all my colleagues have said, I think my wish is that more companies in the drone who are serving the farmers should not immediately trying to force that adoption in a blind way. I believe there should be more data, more, as Giacomo said, more studies to show that actually this is working. There is a benefit if you're, as Hamza said, how much are they gaining, the added value, and then the more we do that, the more we are backed with solid data across all the operators, across all the companies developing this solution, then it will be easier for the farmer to adopt that technology. So even any technology before, the adoption was previously hard until the benefits were repeated and backed by the data. So for me, it's that angle that I think will be really beneficial in taking this to another level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We I think 5 more minutes?
This is
3 more minutes, right. 3 more minutes. One last question to the gentleman here before I hand over to the panel to close.
Merci. Je vous laisse 30 secondes pour mettre vos casques. Merci. Mon nom est Farbo Diouf. Je suis de l'aviation civile du Sénégal. Et je suis très intéressé par le processus d'autorisation. J'aimerais savoir la durée moyenne que vous avez pour obtenir l'autorisation auprès de l'aviation civile et éventuellement les difficultés que vous rencontrez avec l'aviation civile.
Je vais répondre en français du coup.
S'il vous plaît, je pose la dernière question. Voilà. J'ai vu qu'il y a deux domaines qui se rencontrent, l'agriculture et l'aviation. Bon, sans rentrer dans le domaine de l'interprétation des données. Maintenant, quand vous vous lancez dans ces startups, qu'est-ce que vous avez comme expérience? Qu'est-ce que vous avez comme compétence? De l'aviation ou bien spécialiste en agriculture? Merci.
Alors, pour la question sur les autorisations, en fait, ça dépend vraiment des pays dans lesquels on opère. On opère dans beaucoup de pays. Il y a des pays où ça se passe mieux que d'autres. Il y a même des régions dans certains pays où ça se passe mieux que d'autres. Par exemple, au Maroc, on a pas mal d'opérations. Il y a des régions où on peut obtenir des autorisations en 5 jours. Et d'autres où ça peut prendre jusqu'à 15 jours, 3 semaines pour des raisons sécuritaires. En général, toujours la raison est sécuritaire. Quand on a été en Éthiopie sur l'importation des drones avec la CTA, ça a pris pas mal de temps également. Donc c'est vraiment des choses qui vont dépendre des pays et de votre, on va dire, positionnement dans le pays. Il faut connaître les bonnes personnes, savoir à qui déposer les autorisations. Ce qui est dommage, c'est que les processus ne sont pas toujours harmonisés. Donc parfois, il faut la déposer au ministère de l'Intérieur, parfois, il faut la déposer à l'aviation civile. Donc c'est un peu la complexité qu'on retrouve dans ça. Et pour répondre à votre deuxième question, donc quand on travaille en agriculture, en fait, on fait donc de la télédétection et de l'agriculture. Moi personnellement, j'ai un background en télédétection et on a évidemment des agronomes dans la société et en propre, on fait de la production aussi. Enfin, dans mon cas, au Maroc, d'une famille un peu agricole, donc c'est un peu ce qui m'a amené vers cette spécialisation aussi.
Thank you very much, and I hope the gentleman's question has been answered. Great. So we've come to the end of the panel. I would just like for you to give closing remarks, very brief remarks, short sentences, if I may, on what you think the future holds for drone technology in agriculture on the African continent. Very, very brief remarks. And I'll start with the order with which you began. So Eric, Hamza, Eric, and then Giacomo. Very briefly.
Well, I think, in my opinion, I think that the solution has been very helpful to farmers, and that we need support. You know, the donor agencies, whatever should come to the aid of the drone technology companies to help us to expand. You know, so because if we will be able to reduce the cost to the farmers and make it accessible to the smallholder farmers, then it means that, you know, we need to expand to where they are to take away the transportation cost and all those things to reduce the cost of the service for the farmers to do. So, yeah, we are calling for the help support. Support. Yeah.
Thank you, Hamza.
Actually, I think that the drones have really dynamized all these fields. So, for example, we came through the drones at first, then we thought about scaling. But the drones allowed us to use multispectral cameras over fields, so which was not something you could think of before. You had to use real, otherwise than satellite, you had to use real planes. It gave also great opportunity to the guys doing topography work and mining work, because it helped them, you know, streamline their operations and be very quick and very cost efficient. So I think that the drones really helped kickstart and dynamize this industry and in agriculture. I think that in the future, we hope that there will be better harmonization of these regulations, so that's something we've talked about yesterday, we'll talk about it again. I think we're in a good way. Lots of people are talking about it, lots of people are trying to find a way to harmonize it. For us it's very important because we work in agriculture, so if we don't get the authorization to fly by the date of the stage we need to fly in, the season is dead for us. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges we will be facing. The second one, which is more on a more technical point of view, the drones will get better in terms of autonomy, in terms of range, in terms of sensors they can embark. So for now we have some multispectral cameras, which are the cameras we use to develop our advice. I think that all the drone technology also helped kickstart the sensor and the sensor field, because more and more companies are developing multispectral cameras with better bands, seeing much wider wavelengths. So I think that the whole ecosystem is growing. I think we'll see some great things in the future in terms of hardware and software, and I hope that it will help Africa provide for itself regarding all the durable intensification challenge the world will be facing.
Thank you very much, Hamza. Eric?
Yeah, so I think there is a reason to be excited about drone technology in agriculture, and we can already see that that impact. But the more effort that I mentioned earlier, on the initial focus, I think, on breaking the technology, but also showing the impact in terms of data, in terms of numbers, because numbers speak for themselves. So, and also we are seeing the youth, as Giacomo mentioned, that are now being excited now to come back to the agriculture in different ability, in different areas, because they're coming in with even different skills to help the agriculture sector, which is one of the most important sector in the world. So we are seeing that shift in understanding from the youth as well, coming in back in with their skills to make sure that we are producing more as a continent. So there is reason to be excited. There is more work to be done. So in short, that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Eric. Giacomo, very briefly.
I think that Hamza touched on one key aspect. I mean, the decrease in investment needed. I mean, an ED with a multispectral sensor 5 years ago was $30,000. The equivalent craft now with similar sensors is $6,000. It's like, but now new drones are more performing, more enduring, better sensors and so on. I think that people sitting in this room will play a role in answering your question, because the regulators can create enabling or disabling environments. And for agriculture, we are talking about agriculture. And the African Union report suggests and recommends to give a special treatment to operators serving agriculture. Why? Because and humanitarian aid. Why agriculture? Because agriculture is a poor sector, doesn't pay much. I mean, the mining sector, they pay a lot for the services, the surveying as well, and so on. The agricultural sector is a sector which generates less revenue for the operators. And so if you impose very high fees for licensing and so on, I know, for example, in South Africa, fees are rocket high, very, very high. Okay, and in other countries they are less. But also making a differentiation on the kind of services the operator is providing, and giving some sort of stimulus to those who are providing services in the agricultural sector could be instrumental in making the industry grow rapidly. Remember that this meets some of the stringent need to retain youth in the rural areas, to give them employment, to give them exciting employment, rewarding employment, and you regulators, you play a key role in that. And You may not be very familiar with the agricultural sector because you are familiar with the sky and what happens in the sky, but what happens in the sky influences what happens on the ground. And these small machines, which can be used for good and bad, okay, should be controlled, I fully agree, but serve also an opportunity for employment for the benefit of the African youth. So think about that.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to this panel. I may ask you to take to your seats and hand over to George.
Right. You can stand. Diana, you can sit. Please stand and still wait there for a moment. Okay. While she brings the bags, and Diana, if you can please give them out to the rest of the panelists. One thing I must say, it was a lovely panel, lovely discussion. I got confused this last minute. Go ahead, why don't you do that? I'm just talking to the audience. My confusion is short sentences. And I was looking for the short sentences as you gave the final discussion. I didn't see the full stop, you know. So, but anyway, at least the definition of short sentence, we'll try and figure it out. Thank you very much. Please come down. A big hand for them. And as Diana continues, we have got the survey and mapping. And please hand over to you now to do this particular panel session.
Thank you very much, George. So this session, as you all know, is on survey and mapping. And we're going to look at what progress has been made in terms of accelerating land digitization in Africa. So from rural to urban planning, we are going to, and many other things involved, we're going to hear from our speakers. And I'd like to invite them. Our first speaker, and I assume they're all here in the room, Ibrahim Khalid Mambo, head Zanzibar Land Data Processing Center. Please come to the stage. Let's give him a warm welcome. We also have Youth Planning Department, Rwanda Land Management, and Rwanda Land Management Youth Authority at the Ministry of Environment. Please, Alexis, welcome to the stage. We also have Andrew Suki Cho, who is the Vice President of Hojung Solution. Yes, let's give him a warm welcome. And finally, we have Walter Volkman, who is President of Micro Aerial Projects. Like I did last time, I would like to introduce my panel very briefly, and this is for you in terms of the clicker for your presentations. But before we go to the presentations, just very briefly, Ibrahim, who's seated right next to me, is an avid geospatial practitioner who is based in Zanzibar. His main focus is on remote sensing and web map application development. Ibrahim currently works at the Commission for Lands in Zanzibar, which is under the Ministry of Land, Housing, Water and Energy at Zanzibar Land Data Processing Center, where he oversees spatial data management and maintenance. Thank you for joining the panel, Ibrahim.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Alexis Rutajengwa, who is the head of surveying, as I said earlier on, Mapping and Land Use Planning Department of Rwanda Land Management and Use Authority. He has profound experience in land management surveys and mapping. His work includes, amongst other things, coordination and supervision of the National Mapping Geodetic, topographic, hydrographic and cadastral surveys, as well as coordination of national land use planning and management. Thank you for joining the panel, Alexis.
Thank you.
We also have with us Andrew Sukicho, who's the Vice President of Hojung Solution, and he is responsible for the company's global relationship and development and overseas promotion of project initiatives and management. He successfully launched the first sales of Korean manufactured UAV in the United States and built strategic partnerships with companies in the Americas. Andrew, thank you for joining the panel.
Thank you.
And with us we have Walter Volkman, who was born in Namibia and was the first, he was the first land surveyor in Southern Africa to purchase GPS survey equipment. In 2008, he founded Micro Aerial Projects, and together with his son, is providing geospatial solutions using drone and GNSS technology. Walter is currently leading an OMIDMAR network-funded initiative to build drone mapping capacities in Ghana and Colombia. Thank you very much for joining the panel, Walter. And with that said, I would like to invite our panelists to give very brief PowerPoint presentations regarding the topic for this panel. And I'll start with you, Ibrahim, to give your first presentation. Yes, thank you. Yes. You can stand on the lectern.
Hi, and good morning, everyone. I'm Ibrahim, as introduced. I'm from Zanzibar, and I'll be here to talk about the ZMI project, the Zanzibar Mapping Initiative, which is a highly known project in Africa where it involved single mapping of largest area, survey area in Zanzibar, which covers the 2 islands of Zanzibar. Going ahead, instead of giving introduction about the commissions for land, which I think it's included in the introduction provided by Diana, I'll go directly to give a brief introduction of the project. And this will be through a video that is available in the social media, in the YouTube and in other social media platforms. So this video will introduce us to the project, and then I'll go ahead and discuss some of the use cases of the data that was obtained from this UAV technology.
So we have scarcity of land, we have high natural costs, we have very high, immigration. So you can see problem of land and problem of urban growth. So it's really very, very important for us to know the status of land use in Zanzibar, and development, destruction. So we have to know it so that we can manage it better.
So whenever it goes to the destination, you take a picture, you take another picture. We are connecting those images. Finally, after that, we are getting the pictures as if it was taken at once. Like,
we have a lot of possibility of using these factors. In terms of, I'm talking in terms of economy, because we can plan better. In terms of security, to tell people where there's a flood. In terms of service also.
Initially, when we fly with aerial mapping in 2004, we get the aerial mapping with the resolution of 25 centimeters. But now with drone, over all the land, we will fly with the resolution of 7 centimeters. So this will be very good. Resolution is amazing. Everything you can see. We will detect the changes from the past 12 years, how the development of the city, how much the climate change affect our islands.
Kama country yangu sasa hivi itakuwa na kitu ambacho cha uhakika. Itakuwa na kitu kama cha kwetu ambacho tumekifanya, na mimi ni mzaliwa wa hapa, alafu nimeshiriki katika kitu cha nyumbani. I'm proud of that.
So for us, having this opportunity to go very quickly, knowing what we have, and then we can plan it for the future, is really golden opportunity. So when we see this, we jump, because we know this is the tool we want to use for our future development of Tanzania.
Okay, so from the video, I'll jump directly into the use cases of these products that were obtained from these UAV flights. And one of them is by Commission for Lands. The Commission for Lands is a principal body that governs all land matters in Zanzibar. And we at Commission for Lands were using this one for adjudication, that is to ensure that the security of or tenure security is provided in Zanzibar. And this exercise started in 2011, and until now around 10% of those areas that are to be adjudicated have been covered. That increased from 2016 to 13% more, and this was a result of these UAV imageries, as you can see from the provided picture on the slides. So areas of sandstone seem to be mapped, and successfully titles have been issued to the owner of those particular lands. And then Department of Urban and Rural Planning is using these imageries for development of one national spatial development strategy. This is in progress, and then there is also development of township into service centers, so that to diversify the economy of these coastal settlements. And there are areas that are mentioned there in the slides. These are upgraded into service centers, so that more services can be available in this coastal settlement. And also they are used in zoning or in planning guidance by the people who are working at the urban and rural planning department. We're also using these imageries for digitization of the building's roof print. So we did the digitization of the building footprint for the entire island, 2 islands, which is Zanzibar and Pemba, and about 500,000 buildings have been digitized so far. And the work was done by the COLA, that is Commission for Land, and SUZA, Zanzibar State University of Zanzibar student, as part of capacity building. And in that, the results that were obtained from this digitization project or work was used in other projects, or most of the projects that are currently ongoing in Zanzibar. As you can see from the provided slide, that all the 2 islands have been covered by the buildings and can be seen depicted by the buildings. Those are not coastlines, those are buildings that are covering the 2 islands of Zanzibar. So in order to, then we use these data sets provided by this digitization exercise to update the OSM data set, that is OpenStreetMap data set, so you can see the comparison between now and 2016. So you can see that the entire city now has been covered by buildings, and this was done through mass building imports, coupled with field map surveys that were done also by the students from SUZA, State University of Zanzibar. This same data set is used in property taxation. The government aims in providing or assisting local government to collect revenue through property taxation. So we have used same data set as source, whereby the field enumerators go to the field and collect data regarding the property valuation of these buildings using the data set that were digitized from this drone imagery. So you can see the forms and the sample maps that are used by these enumerators when they go to the field. Oh, good. And in conclusion, we are seeing that there are a couple more uses of these data sets. In Zanzibar, we currently are starting something called Zanzibar Special Data Infrastructure. And the basis of this Zanzibar Special Data Infrastructure, or in short is called ZAN-SDI, is based on this data set that were collected from this drone imagery. We had the previous imagery from 2014. This little old and cannot be used for any planning or any future development as far as GIS is concerned. Also, the government is intending to diversify the land economy, that is to introduce capital gains and to introduce other property taxes, as mentioned. So we are seeing that the use case of this drone could be much improved, could be used successfully. Also, there are interests by other government institutions, such as Statistics Department. We have water and electric companies. These are owned by the government, but we have seen interest from them that they want to use the same data sets to map the nodes, like water nodes and electricity nodes, to the household levels. Also, there are uses of these drone imageries by forestry and marine conservation departments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Alexis, I would like to call on you to give your presentation.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Alex, as introduced this earlier. I'm going to talk briefly on the use of the use case of drones in Rwanda, especially in the mapping and surveying sectors. So as you can see, since the beginning, the starting of two companies, Caris and Zipline, then the mapping using drone has started creating impact in Rwanda. You can see that there are a lot of, I wanted to present about 6 projects so far which are key and creating impact to rural and urban communities in Rwanda. The first project is how the drone was used to monitor the Mukura-Gishwati zone. It is a degraded zone and invaded by the population. But the question was to restore that zone, reforesting, planting many trees in that zone. So the drone was one of the alternatives to know how much trees have been planted by the community. You can know that also Kigali Rwanda in general is a hilly area with of course valleys and mountains. So it requires only the drone is one of the best technology to map that type of landscape. Looking at the second project that Rwanda has conducted to know what, where, and who is in wetlands. Wetlands as a state land was being invaded by the population, and those wetlands are flood-prone areas. So the government was actually having a question. How can we relocate those people? So the drone was used then to know which activities are located in Kigali wetlands, and how many and what value of those wetlands. So the drone have played a very big role to monitor the land use and create an informed decision for the government to relocate the people in that flooded zone. So you can see also that as area presented by the panel, the drones are being used in mapping and in agriculture in general. We used the drone to monitor the consolidated crops in northern province, in Musanze, to look at also the health conditions of the crops. So we piloted in that zone, and we found out good results that the drone can help to have condition of the crop as well. When you look at also on the other side of irrigation, we have such big schemes of irrigation. So the drone was used also to map the topography and to know details for further irrigation development. Rwanda, another project which is fifth, I think, is the use of drone in cadastral system. Cadastral system has been developed since 2013 in Rwanda. We're covering the whole country. So we have a very good database, but which needs to be up to date in a regular way. So we piloted or we tested how the drone can be used in that regards. So we have now good results that for urban areas, especially, the drone is very effective to know and to update the boundaries of parcels. Another project is flood mapping. This is very effective in northern province and western, where even it's very difficult to use ground survey using surveyors as a normal practice. So to flying a drone, it's a very easy and timely, and it can be used in very short time. So flood mapping in northern province has then informed how that ecosystem can be restored and protected against soil erosion and against other malpractices. So going quickly, I wanted also to share with you about enabling environment in Rwanda. So far we have regulations. It has been discussed very well by different panels. Regulations are clear, and we have also a very important system of land administration, cadastral system, which actually it can be integrated with the drone data. As well, most importantly, we have the course network continuously operating reference stations across the country, whereby today we can cover 100% the country. So this is a very important asset for the country, so that this, for every drone user, can be connected and have a high accuracy and precision in terms of data capture. We have also organized our surveyors in terms of association, so that we make sure that the capacity building and the efficiency also is done around this technology. Now, as challenges, when you look at the types of drone we have so far, we have a problem of limited flying time. Okay, thank you. Let's go quickly because maybe this will discuss much more. We have constraint of flying time. You can fly a drone, but very difficult to stay longer, which that's a very big constraint that maybe is also an opportunity for investment, limited service coverage, and so forth. So there is a lot of opportunities that we can discuss in the country, and all of you can look at that the perspective to continuously create a conducive environment in terms of the systems and integrating the drone in different sectors as well as creating partnership with other spatial actors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexis. I would like to ask our two remaining panelists to kind of speed up the presentation so we can have a bit more meat in our conversations. Thank you.
My name is Andrew Cho from Hejong Solutions, and we're one of the finalists in the Find and Assess category of the Lake Kivu Challenge. And we feel very fortunate to have this part of the presentation, specifically of mapping and survey, because we're not a heavy lifter or cargo drone. We are a very small, efficient drone that is focused primarily in the precision mapping, cadastral, and land surveying. My presentation will focus on the following topics. International land projects we have conducted, and I'll talk briefly about the funding side of it. Drone-based geomatics and the advantages of using drones. The scope of an exercise, a feasibility study that we did in Ethiopia. And the following slides will focus on some of the effectiveness that we have found. Wanted to share that in the analysis of the effectiveness and some concluding remarks. So our international projects, as you know, Korea has been one of the fast economic development. Its success has been quite impressive, and as our economic development improved, and later on we became from one of the recipient countries to a donor country, and spearheading a lot of these projects in the capacity building all over the world has been EDCF of Korea, KOICA, and the Ministry of Land and Infrastructure and Transportation. And with their sponsorship and funding, we have been able to specifically focus on some of the drone projects in some of the countries in Africa, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Tunisia, and in Sri Lanka. Something wrong. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is forward.
Yeah. So drone-based geomatics has its advantage. Of course, we believe that a lot of the technology has a very proven track record. We consider that in the field of mapping and survey, it's no longer in the testing stage. It's beyond that. It has given very reliable and effectiveness in using drone in the survey and mapping. But having said that, you want to choose what type of tools you want to use. Drone could be very effective, but if you're covering a vast amount and large territories, you'd of course rather use a satellite or manned air imaging. But the important part of actually using a drone for imaging is because instead, if you choose to use alternatives, you'd require massive infrastructure. Drones have a very quick and immediate response time, and we found that it has a very empowering factor to the local community. It is a localized asset, as we consider. It does not require a lot of approvals and going through logistics to really mobilize a large imaging from satellite or manned aircraft. So drone is effective in really giving some autonomy to the local government in trying to really respond quickly. And that, I think, is one of the strengths of using drone over other alternatives. The project we conducted in Ethiopia, in the city of Adama, was possible through the funding, and it's a feasibility study through the funding of EDCF program. And the area that we took, the project had a component, the larger component of mapping and taking imagery of a large 6 square kilometer. And we divided the zone into Zone A and 2. And Zone A was more of a developed area where boundaries were very clearly marked, lots, and the lines were clearly defined. The second area was more of an informal area where lines and boundaries were not really clear. So in Zone 1, the results and the imagery that we took was from the image of the drone. We were able to capture about 400 points to be able to, and the rest of the points, because of the coverage in trees and canopies, we had to do it by ground, but that was more minimal. On the traditional survey method, we'd use total stations to extract those points. As you can see, the drone image were taken, took about 3 hours, and the ground surveying was a little bit longer for 4 hours. And the total number of parcels we measured, combined ground and drone, was 243 from 450 points, and it took about 7 hours with a manpower of 3 people. The second zone was less developed. It was less marked, so it took an extra step to really prepare the markings to clearly define the boundaries. The data that we extracted from there was 425 points, on the ground 15 points, and actually in this case it was easier to really extract the points because in these less developed neighborhoods there were less trees and less obstacles that really covered some of the images. So in total, 216 parcels, 453 points, and basically 5 manpower for 6 hours. Comparing the cadastral demarcation extracted from our survey with drones and some of the points from ground survey, measured against the work and the existing data from the Ethiopian cadastral, we were able to measure some difference of, in some areas, very small millimeters, and in some areas where perhaps the largest was 20 centimeters. And the important part, I suppose, here is that most of the points fit the standards that Ethiopia was requiring in terms of their cadastral measurements. So as you can see, the effectiveness. Okay. So I want to really emphasize this point. The takeaway from our analysis was that in many cases, the measurements may have been off, but it fit the standards. But the most important part is that it really gave the opportunity for participatory. A lot of the surveyors and the demarcation that many of the surveyors were really ready to really participate in the actual feasibility study. It is important that from this process, we are actually taking a lot of the labor-intensive aspects of people measuring and marking the lines from outside labor to inside of the post-processing aspect of it. So in a way, you are actually changing the job description in a way, almost upgrading the work that is done from many surveys working in the field to really upgrading their roles of the demarcators to the office. And we find that this is a very easy process because a lot of the surveyors that we worked in both Tanzania and Ethiopia were really professional surveyors, traditional surveyors, yet they had a very solid foundation in surveying. So it was a very easy transformation for them to really absorb the skills set from the data set that we were acquiring from the drones. So in conclusion, it is a tool that we can use very effectively, and we believe that there's an aspect of very autonomous and very independent way of really empowering a lot of the surveyors locally to be able to conduct survey using drones. It is simply putting new set of tools in the hands of surveyors who have already a very solid knowledge of geodetics and land surveying. So I would like to conclude with that, and I'll take questions next.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Walter?
Thank you. My background is from the small enterprise, family-owned perspective. I hope to bring some grassroots perspective to the drone issue. I'm a professional land surveyor, mainly concerned with finding better solutions, more efficient solutions to address the serious backlog in formalization of property rights all over the world. Over 50% of the world's population is working and living on land of which the ownership details are not clear or formalized. There's a huge backlog. We need more efficiency in surveying, in performing cadastral survey. That's our task. In order to provide true self-sufficiency that can take root on an organic and a decentralized basis, we need to make sure that we have skills from the first mile to the last mile. And the first mile in drone technology, to my mind, is to know how a drone works and to be able to recover from crashes. So it's a rather provocative little diagram there, but if you cannot quickly recover from a crash, you cannot really deliver a sustainable service. We are working mainly in Ghana, so I'm going to just show you a couple of pictures of what we are doing there from scratch, from scratch or from easily available parts. We teach selected counterparts in Ghana how to build drones and then on how to fly them, so that they are able to have a deep understanding of drone technology and that they feel secure and confident in using this technology. Because we believe that only with a sense of confidence can you really unleash innovation at the local level. If you are forever scared of crashing or of not being able to recover, you will be hampered in your initiatives regarding innovation that is appropriate for local conditions. So we immerse our trainees in real-life situations while holding a hand, so it's very much a hands-on training at the beginning. And then we introduce the technology also to the powers that are. It's no use ignoring authorities. It's very important to collaborate with them. So here we are talking to the Minister of Lands and Natural resources in Ghana, who, as a result, partly of our initiatives, has got a very positive approach, an embracing approach to drone technology. We also supply equipment on the basis of 1 is none and 2 is 1, so there's always a spare drone in a set, so that people can recover in the field from any mishaps that could occur. We also motivate the embracement of drones, the acceptance of drones, by providing robust cost-benefit analysis, not only in terms of accuracy and economic efficiency, but also in spreading the spectrum of participation. The high resolution of drone imagery lends itself perfectly to make planning and urban planning and land use allocations, land administration and all these things, to make them accessible to all folks, especially the stakeholders on the ground. The high resolution is key to drone technology. The outcome, the desired outcome, is of course implementation of the technology. The Ghana Lands and the Lands Ministry is considering now buying 30 drones. Hopefully they will decide to buy it from a local manufacturer. So with that, I think I'm going to cut myself short here.
Thank you.
I had a little video that I wanted to show, but I'll forego that in the interest of making more time available for questions and answers.
Alexander.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So in the interest of time, and I think George or one of the facilitators here will let me know how many minutes we have. I can see we have 10 more minutes, and I also wanted to hear from the audience. So we're going to just have, I'm just going to ask 1 or 2 generic questions to the panel, and then if there are any questions, very quickly we'll take them in the next 10 minutes we have before we close for the coffee break. So you've explained your work in terms of survey and mapping and using drone technology in land use, land management, in accelerating rights in terms of land rights and so on and so forth. My question to you is from a policy level or from implementers, in drone technology, what business model fits? And this is to all of you. Should governments invest in internal capacity in really building this drone technology, or should they, focus more on partnerships with expert service providers, especially with regards to survey and mapping? What's your take on this? And Ibrahim, I'll start with you.
Okay, for the case of Zanzibar, for example, all of the works that were done using this UAV technology relied on the local expertise through capacity building programs. So we had experts from abroad, of course, but their job was to train especially the students, as I mentioned in the presentation. All the works from the drone flights, data processing, data storing and management was done by these students. Also, when it comes to digitization, all of those 500,000 buildings were digitized by students from this university, State University of Susa. And coupled with the drone, polygons that were digitized, roof prints of the buildings, there was a survey work that was done also by the student during the summer of this summer, of course, who went to the field and collected data for those parcels. These were household data, so they included resilience data, for example, whether a house is flooded or not. They also included data for whether the house is equipped with running water or not. Also, they collected data for the amenities such as roads, mosques, churches, dispensaries. So basically, most of the work was done by these students, and this is an effort for the government, because whenever these projects are coming to Zanzibar, the government emphasizes on building on local capacity so that the local citizens, students, youth, and also the government workers should be trained in order to facilitate whenever the project ends. So nowadays you have these foreign companies, or you have other institutions who are coming for commission for lands because they are the custodian of these data sets, asking for these data sets. Also you have experts from abroad who are working on different projects, health projects, and you have experts working on construction. when they come, usually they come to us, the local experts, for the data set, or sometime they need to refly on a certain zone. So we are the one who are doing it, we are the one who are processing data, and we are the one who are managing and storing these data sets. So I don't know about other countries, but I think the model that we in Zanzibar are doing is better because it's cost effective. Yes. Because when you have this, I'm not saying that they shouldn't invest in these foreign experts, because also in Zanzibar we want to accelerate some of these services. For example, in land tenure exercise. So we want to hire some of the Korean consultants. I don't know the company, I forgot the company's name. But they will like together with what we have. So we work together to ensure that this process of land registration is fast and
accelerated.
Yeah.
Walter, I would like to pose the same question to you.
Yeah, I think the solution ultimately to cope with the big backlog in especially the formalization of land rights lies in decentralization. So the more small operators we can get to collect imagery at short notice, audit just in time, and at high frequency as needed, the better. Drone technology offers us the opportunity to make us independent of scale of economy. So we are moving to a scenario where no job is too small. We are dealing with individuals and maybe small group land rights, and their needs will best be addressed locally. That's what we believe. So the more we can replicate small enterprise drone capacities, the better. So I was so pleased to see downstairs at the exhibition hall there's a young man from Dar es Salaam, I believe, who's used a piece of styrofoam and 2 sticks of bamboo and mounted on it open source drone technology. He can hang a camera on it and make maps. That's the kind of solution that I would like to see promoted more aggressively than what has been happening to date. There's a huge potential to be untapped here in Africa. In many African countries, lots of talent and lots of good education is wasted because they don't find application in things like drone technology. This young man who built a drone there is not a rocket scientist. He's a development specialist with no scientific or no university education in mathematics or anything of that kind. He's using open source technology. There's a group called ardupilot.com. It's got over 70,000 users worldwide, and he's tapping into that resource to make a drone right here in Africa. And that's what we need. We have the African Drone Forum should have African drone assemblers as part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to pose the same question to you, Andrew, and then Alexis.
Yes.
Best business model.
In terms of the ability to really create and do accurate land surveying with drones, we believe that there's 2-level expertise that is needed. The first to be a solid foundation in land surveying principles, and the second would be how the operation of the drone, and then the third one would be more the post-processing of the data. From our experience in Africa, and I'm not sure if I could speak for all the countries, but for sure most of the countries in Africa has a very solid foundation in terms of geodetic and land surveying specialists. It's an old tradition job where there are surveyors that can do and have solid knowledge of that. So our long-term approach would be to invest in the infrastructure of drones and try to create the skills needed for that aspect, because there's already a very solid foundation in terms of surveyors. And our experience has really been very good where, for example, the demarcators and all the surveyors were able to pick up the knowledge on the data that was collected from drones. They use a lot of the ArcGIS and a lot of the software already, so they've been able to absorb that. So my answer would be to really, our approach would be to invest so that there's a transfer of knowledge and transfer of technology that can be absorbed in a fairly short period of time.
Thank you very much. Alexis?
Thank you very much. What I can say is that the drone technology is is more like a passion. So most of people, when you look at the people who practice it, they enjoy it, as said. So the role of the government now is to create that conducive environment for the youth, for the private sector, so that everyone can be feel free to practice the mapping using drone. When you look at Rwanda case, yes, we have good regulations that enable everyone to invest and to go in this field. And also the government has created education, all learning institutions are available, are teaching relevant courses around mapping and so forth. So up to now, it's a good practice. Maybe we need the government to this area to be part of the African free trade area, where everyone can feel free to cross border and practice this activity in everywhere in neighboring countries. So that environment, I think, is the one to create. And when you look at the technology in general and the surveying, they have similarities. So I think that's the point.
I would like to ask if there are any, very briefly, questions from the audience. Yes, we have a gentleman right there, and then one here, and I think we'll close. If you can just be very quick with your questions.
Yes, my name is Alpha Mangola from Tanzania, Arusha. So I just have one quick question on issues of survey, because in the case of Tanzania, we are running these big projects on regularization, where we survey the informal settlements, trying to resurvey them. But the practice is you must, everyone who is owning a piece of land must be there and show it, so as they can show you the boundaries. And if you don't do that, at the end of the day, there's a lot of land conflicts. Now, I was wondering when the presenter was presenting on what they're doing, like using the drone around to have the points. I think I was just when I think on what I see in the practice when we're doing this regularization, if someone is not there to verify the boundary, and those are informal settlements, and when I say informal settlements, I think we agree, the housing density is very huge. You cannot say the boundary of each of a certain house easily. So I was wondering, is there another thinking of machine learning, and how can it be interpreted with the traditional methodology? Because what I'm trying to say is, how are they thinking to use the technology and the tradition? Because if the tradition wants you to be there, how the technology can accommodate that? That's the
Thank you. Do you want to answer that question very quickly? Yes, Walter?
Yes, I think the key to that aspect is to bring the geospatial information to the village, and not just grab the information from the village and take it to town. Actually, for example, adjudication takes best place under the tree, in the village, in the presence of the community. Somebody makes a land claim, he has to do that in the presence and witnessed by his neighbors and his fellow villagers. So we found out that a lot of discussion around and enthusiasm around land use and land administration at the local level is facilitated by the high resolution of drone imagery. And it is not always a question of spatial accuracy, but of accurate interpretation of the spatial context in which information is presented. So having this high resolution opens the spectrum and transparency at the local level, and that's extremely important for security of tenure.
Thank you. We had a question, I think, here. Please be very quick to the point with what you're asking.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Vincent. I'm from South Africa. We have an aerial survey company, and we use both manned and drones to do our survey. the question is always been is that where is the break point between using aerial and unmanned, proper manned aerial platforms and unmanned aerial platforms, because what is the best practice in terms of square meterage? And just one other comment that I would like to say is that what we've done is that we've converted our surveyors into drone pilots because we believe that they can bring a level of accuracy into the work that they finally produce instead of trying to get drone pilots to become surveyors.
Very interesting. Would you like to comment on that? And then from the panel? Yes,
maybe I can touch on that. For example, as I mentioned, in case of Zanzibar, we have these surveyors who are always obsessed with millimeter accuracy. So when you fly a drone, they don't believe that a drone can bring you millimeter accuracy, especially in case of Zanzibar, because we do not have this core system. But in countries with core system, we've seen that in the case of Korea, I think also here in Rwanda, I talked to Alex yesterday, and he mentioned that in Rwanda there was core system. So with core system, you have these drones flying. You do not need to worry about achieving this millimeter level accuracy. So it depends basically on the country. And when you asked about the limit between having this, the planes and having these drones, the advantage of having drone is you can refly on the same area. For example, you have a project and you have flown, for example, 2 months ago, and then the conditions have changed, or maybe there's a construction site that is, construction activities are going on. You can refly again using drones, but that cannot be the case when you say you fly a plane to capture the same area. And usually flying drones using planes, you are doing that when you are covering a large area, not very small area. For example, for our case, we usually don't need to fly using the planes because the area is small and most of this area is covered. And then we refly like frequently in most of these areas to solve these problems of land conflicts and border conflicts as far as the land tenure is concerned.
Thank you, Walter. Very quickly.
Yes, I do agree that surveyors are good targets for drone technology, but I think we should have many, many more drones flying around than there are surveys around in order to make up for the backlog. To limit our attention just to the current people who are practicing land surveying will not address the problem adequately.
You have to say something, but very quickly, Alexis, we are done with time.
Yes. Actually, the drone is not only a tool or equipment. It's also the processing. It's also the technology incorporated in it. So our surveyors, we are now combining different equipment. Sometimes we use total stations, then we use scanners, then drones. Then we are going even to robotics. So it's actually we cannot avoid the technology to grow. So our surveyors are not only standing on one point, but they are growing also in terms of what they use and at what scale. Imagine the project that engaged many surveyors with a lot of time. For 1 year, the drone can make it in some days. So this is also a time management part and efficiency also in whatever we are doing. So the drone technology comes to increase the efficiency and accuracy in whatever we are doing in terms of surveying and mapping. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I'm not able to take any more questions because we're actually 10 minutes over this panel's end, but I'd like us to just give a warm round of applause for the contributions to the panelists. And thank you very much. And I think I'll hand over to George to announce what happens next. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for what a wonderful panel, and thank you, Diana, for moderating 2 panels. If I can ask Rosa to come up, please, and we do the usual. But as she's doing that, I think this discussion today made us realize or question what is the operational model, what's the business model for a drone operator so that he can be sustainable? And this is the question that people are asking, and this is what I got out of the two panel discussions. And this is why we have the ADF, to try and come up with those answers. And at the same time, it's the use cases that will tell us. So as the Honorable Minister Paula told us yesterday about the use cases in Rwanda, the three of them that we're going to have with the support of DFID, we want to come up with data that we can now circulate to the parties at large to say, this is a model. Do you spend 5 cents per minute per flight, and how many flights do you do? How is it good vis-a-vis putting your stuff in a lorry? How much time do you save? And that's why we have the use cases which will help us give us those answers to make it really understandable on how to best use drones with greater efficiency. So having stated that, there was a special request from the Director General of Sudan. Maybe I should call it. He wanted to make a statement. So please, you're welcome, sir, to come up and make us. Do you want to come say something and then? Right, you're welcome.
Well, thank you very much, dear George. I'm not here to speak a lot. I'm here to say thank you for the DG from Rwanda. I would like to present him something from the Civil Aviation of Sudan, and also the representative for the World Bank, if they can come in. Thank you. Come up here.
I guess that means so we have the DG from the World Bank, and DG, he just moved out. I think, yeah, he had an important phone call. Can someone represent him? Is Isabel here? He's out there on the phone call. Isabel, is Andrew here? Is Francis here?
We can see him later if he's
Andrew,
not.
do you want to represent the DG? Oh, is one moment? Oh, Isabel is here. Okay.
Okay.
But that phone call must be important. On behalf of the DG of Rwanda, can you accept a gift from the DG of Sudan, please? All right, thank you. So, for me, yeah, on the stage, yes. We want.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, DG. At least for me, it gives me motivation to see this, to show that how important the ADF is. And with that now, we break for tea. We were supposed to come back at 12. As you said, there's democracy. Should we come back at 12 or 12:05? Pardon me? There is a difference. One is 12, one is 12:05.